Hello and welcome to Champ Select, your go-to competitive Legends of Runeterra podcast. I'm Alex, as per usual. Joining me are Noble.
Hello.
And Hugh.
Hello.
And today we got a nice seasonal tournament overview. We're going to talk a lot about our attempts to qualify, how the actual tournament went for any of us who did, kind of our hindsight on the event, things that could maybe be improved, things that we really liked about it. I think overall we had a pretty genuinely positive review of the entire experience, and we'll get more into that. Then we're going to go into spoiler season. This is probably the most exciting time of the year. Christmas is coming early for us Legends of Runeterra players. We got all the sweet new cards. We only have a few this time. I was really hoping we'd maybe have a little bit more than like just Victor to talk about. We're recording this Tuesday evening, so we don't. If there are some newer spoilers we might have missed at the time of recording this, but
but hopefully we'll make a future podcast that catches up on like by next week.
We'll hopefully have it catches up all of it. Yeah. So anyway, I think we're ready to jump straight on into the seasonal tournament. I think we want to start with our general attempts to qualify and basically our season overview as far as laddering and prime gauntlets and all that. So how did you what was your main goal through this whole thing?
So I guess I'll go ahead and start with mine. My main goal, originally I'd planned on getting as many prime glories as I could, and then I quickly kind of abandoned that after I missed a couple gauntlets, and then I didn't fully realize how the gauntlet worked, and then basically by the
by the time it mattered, you were off it.
By the time it mattered, I just had one prime glory, and I was like, grinding ladder is just so much more constructive, and it's probably my best bet. So I just started like going all in on qualifying by being top 700 masters, which didn't quite work out. I got really, really close.
I had a very similar experience to that whole thing too. Finish your thought, and then I'll go into it.
Basically, I just I think I topped out at. I needed what was it? What was the cutoff? Like 123 LP.
I think it was like 120.
It ended up being 119.
You're kidding.
And you were 118 for a while.
I was 119.
Yeah, you were 119, and then you played again, right?
Yeah, no. I didn't like
good.
sit at 119. I got to 119 and thought, man, I really need to win one more game to solidify my
one more
spot.
you would have been good for sure.
Yeah, and it's
but 119 was like just close enough that you might need to play it.
Oh boy, that's like retroactively. Tilting.
I think that only like. I think I looked at it. I think like 2 or 3 players at 119 got in.
Yeah,
and you had played, so right, it would have been like even one less or whatever.
It's entirely possible that at 119
you very likely might not have gotten in at 119.
Yeah, and it's fine. Like being at 119 is not a smart bet on actually qualifying. Certainly. It's just a little annoying.
Yeah. But one thing that is noteworthy is players that were up to as low down as 1,500 did eventually end up getting in through the waitlist, because the top like 300 or whatever player, or maybe it was 600 players outside the top 700 got put on waitlist, and they were just like there when the tournament started. And if people didn't show up for their first round, they got slotted in, and someone who was placed like it was like 1,200 or lower actually got in because so many of the people who were wastelisted didn't show up. So it like got all the way down to them and they ended up playing. So like if you are wastelisted for this tournament, it is definitely possible that you can still get in. So like
that's
show up for it.
That's probably one of those things that's only ever going to happen the first time. I think it's definitely still worth showing up to. Obviously, that's the takeaway, but my guess is that that's probably not going to happen past 750 in the future or whatever.
Yeah, I think if that should be common knowledge.
I doubt most people even knew that they were on a waitlist to potentially get into the tournament. I would have had no idea where I
certainly didn't know that. I would have stuck around. I would have kept grinding ladder for sure a little bit longer and tried to get in that way. I probably would have gotten in that way. Definitely had the time to sit and hang out and see. But
regardless, I definitely did the same thing where I was playing a lot of Expedition early on, and I was like kind of dragging my feet to get into ladder because I really like Expedition.
It's a really good format. I don't play.
Eventually, I was like, fine, I'll do it. But I was like, I wasn't super committed to hitting top 700. I figured my most likely qualification was just going to be in the gauntlet. And then like 2 or 3 weeks before the season cutoff, I like kind of flipped the switch in my head. I was like, no, I'm playing ladder. I'm going to climb. I'm going to get there. And I did not get there.
You really need to start you want to get in Masters like halfway into the season. Like,
Yeah, it would be a lot easier if I'd started
ladder's
playing
way
sooner.
softer once if you're trying to. I hit Masters like a week before the cutoff, and I started grinding then, and the difference between playing before the tournament started and after is night and day.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
yeah, people just don't care anymore. They get to play whatever their brews. I actually hit way more janky brews in Masters than I did in like Diamonds.
That's huge. That's very common.
It's actually
very
yeah,
common.
very
People are like,
common.
I made it. I'm gonna play Poros now.
Yeah, it's a thing people do.
Yeah, I've
For their like
done the
YouTube
same
video,
thing.
it's like 360 no scoping. You know, you just like queue up with a million Poro cannons and see if you could kill people for your YouTube video. It's like a very real thing.
Yeah, no, it's pretty fun. I've done the same thing.
I'm sure he was a culprit for sure. But yeah, and then I was climbing ladder, but I wasn't playing as much as I needed to be with the amount of time that I had, and it took me too long to realize that. And I just ended up, peaking at like Diamond 2, close to Diamond 1, I think, and then just like had a lost streak and was basically dead in the water from there because I just
Especially
did not
'cause-
have enough time.
Yeah, once you make it to Masters, the win-lossing is pretty brutal because for winning you get a minimum 15 LP and then like sometimes up to 18. But
Very
then,
infrequently.
yeah, but then when you lose anywhere from 15, but almost always more than that. It's like anywhere from like 18 to 25 LP.
I would say that on average, if I averaged out all of my wins and all of my losses, I would say on average I gain 16 and lose 24.
Yeah, it's really, really brutal. You have to win a lot more than you lose to climb. And so
Yeah.
even getting to 120 LP, which is why that was around the cutoff, is quite a feat. You have to play a good amount or get really, really lucky like I did. So I guess this is a good time
Well, we
to talk about-
played great in those games.
We did play great.
Our components just like snap conceded when we had Fiora on 3, like 2 games in a row.
Yeah, it was a great time. But so I also was trying to do the Prime Glory thing. A thing worth noting if you're trying to collect the Prime Glories is they do only stay open for like 3 days, and I definitely spent a couple weekends not thinking about it, and then like trying to do it early in the week, the next week, and it already being closed.
Yeah, I think we all learned that lesson the hard way.
Yeah,
the
but
first
they were
time.
fun, and I enjoyed doing them. They were also a great way to practice the tournament style. And so those games, I think, were some crucial experiences for me for like deck building and stuff. But that ended up not mattering because I ended up top 700 on the ladder at like 400 and like 20th place at like
Let's go.
123 LP. I probably could have gone higher based on my win rate after that, and like, but it's obviously not worth.
Yeah, never
once you know
playing.
that you're.
Yeah, once you're locked, you never play.
Yeah, especially when there were like 24 hours to go.
Yeah.
Or I actually qualified with probably like 6 hours to go. But if earlier in the season you get up there, you can just like keep playing, and that's how people at the top flower get like. What was it like 1,000
Yeah,
LP?
there's a couple people
They
that
have
have
been
1,000
playing the
LP.
entire
Maniac who had over 1K points.
yeah, for sure. So I qualified after getting stuck in Diamond 3 for like 150 games straight. I just like never left Diamond 3. Like I was just winning and losing such that I would win maybe 2 or 3 in a row and then like lose 4 in a row. And like I would get to Diamond 2 barely and then immediately lose. Like I just could not escape Diamond 3 for like, I kid you not, like almost 30
It was
hours
a
of gameplay.
hellscape. Yeah, I was there for all of it, and it was rough. I mean, I really saw the man go through like all 5 stages of grief.
It was frustrating. I was like, I have plenty
actually,
of time. I have a week. I'm in Diamond.
you like actually came into like you like were like just like pacing around in the kitchen like a random Tuesday morning when I like woke up to like get my cup of coffee, and you're like, I can't do it, Alex. I've been up for 7 hours straight. I'm still at Diamond 3. And I was like, look, man,
Took so
it's
long. I felt like
8:30. I just woke up. Like,
feels like, yeah.
you should go to bed. And then like the next day, it was like 2 p.m. and you were like laying on the couch, like half asleep eating a bagel, and you were like, I'm just a Diamond 3 player, man. Like, I'm just hard stuck here. I'll never get out. Like you
Well.
legitimately went through all 5 stages of grief in like a 2-day period.
I do legitimately think that getting out of Diamond 3 made me a much better player. I think that by the time I exited Diamond 3, I was more practiced and playing smarter. A thing that was hard for me with this game is like you can play it on your phone, so it's really easy to like multitask and stuff, or not be paying full attention, or just like it's on your phone so you forget about it, or in a conversation or whatnot, and so you're not totally focused on the game. And when I like sat down at my computer and started playing, talking through my plays with people on Discord, or actually just really thinking through plays, really trying to climb, and most importantly, playing the same deck. Like in those 150 games, I played like 20 games of Pirates, 30 games of Mistrace, like 10 games of Fiora Shen, then I was off it, and then I played like a bunch of TF Go Hard, which is what eventually got me to Masters, is I like decided to start playing TF Go Hard.
With the sweet tech right as it was coming out, which was
of
really
like
good.
Commander
Ledros and Withering Whale.
To beat Mistwraiths. And like kegs and stuff to have a decent Mistwraiths matchup. And I was like, okay, well, one night I was like, okay, well, I'm playing TF Guard and it's going pretty well. I'll go to bed tonight. And this was at like 9. I was like, I'll go to bed tonight when I lose. And then I won like 10 straight games to get to like Diamond 180 LP. And then on the 80 LP game, I lost to Pirates. And then the next day I had to like play like
Pick it back
6
up.
or 7, like I think it was eventually 8 games to get to Masters. But then I got there, did the Masters scrum a little bit. TF Go Hard wasn't doing as well for me in Masters. Until I eventually like won some, lost some with Pirates because some of my friends were really on Pirates. But then eventually I just rattled off a very clean 6 ILS. Like I was playing Feel the Rush, and then I played the Feel the Rush mirror 3 out of like 8 games in a row. And I was like, you know what beats Feel the Rush? I'm going to play Fiora Shen. And then I just went 6-0 in like...
It was like 6-0 in like
2
25.
hours. It was like 2 hours.
You think it was that long?
No,
Really?
I thought it was like 50
I thought
minutes.
yeah,
but, like,
he was on Discord for like the whole time. I think it was like 25 or 30 minutes.
Okay,
Like,
yeah,
it was,
you're
they
right.
were
It was
like
not-
we had
it was
two
pretty
people
fast. So, like, you
two
were-
people just concede on turn 3 when we played Fiora.
Yeah.
Like
I
we
beat
kind of
Tom.
slammed people.
Yeah. Beat Tom Rocca, beat Shyvana, Asol. I just crushed a Feel the Rush player, and it wasn't
Yeah.
particularly close. The last game to get to the necessary LP was the last 2 were actually against Lee Zed, which actually it turned out to be a good matchup, and then Ash Sejuani, which was like a really brutal matchup that I only won.
Yeah, we won the Ash Sejuani matchup to clench the requisite LP, which was pretty sweet.
Bright Steel formation
card's
was the
messed
only
up.
reason that I won. I just like had a board of 6 creatures and was attacking every turn, but their creatures were bigger, so I needed combat tricks. I needed to play my combat tricks first, and I'd struck with like a River Shaper like 5 times. Like in this game, they like frostbit my thing, and then I like dodged a Culling Strike with a then I riposted it, then a Culling Strike did, and then I sharp sighted
was a
it
huge
for a
blowout.
huge blowout, and then I still almost lost because by the end of it, they had drawn like, I kid you not, 10 cards with Trifarian Assessors,
Yep.
and they just had a board full of 5/5s,
was a sweet
and I was
game.
like, my like 3/3s need like barrier to actually attack into this, but eventually got there and then sat pretty at like place 400 to qualify.
Yeah,
so that felt good.
Yeah, speed up the review just a little bit. But I do want to jump in really quick with a lot of people, especially in the competitive mindset around these type of tournaments, have a real like almost psychosis with assessing like self-worth with how well they're doing in these card games. And obviously we've all been like Magic tournament grinders and all that for a long time, and every card game player has to go through this where, you know, even if you don't queue one time or you get hard stuck in Diamond 2 and you really wanted to play this tournament like I did or whatever, you know, like you'll always have the next time, and it's important not to associate, you know, like feel bad about yourself for not making it for
At the end of the day,
whatever
there's just like
reason.
a lot of variance, and
Yeah, remember there's a lot of variance, and you know, you'll find the good side of it
And I
eventually.
do think you're almost guaranteed to qualify for this tournament if you're a decent player and willing to put in the hours, but it's a lot
hard to
of
put in the
hours.
hours.
It
Yeah.
takes a lot of time to climb. Someone made a spreadsheet, and it was how many games to get to Masters? It was like with a 60% win rate. It was like a 51% win rate. You needed to play like 1,000 games or something crazy.
Yeah, but 51% win rate
It's not good,
is
yeah.
not great. Like,
Yeah, but it does
Still,
take
it's
a
a
while.
lot.
Like the most important thing about climbing a rank ladder is like, sure, you can go like 30-5 and you're gonna climb really fast, but most decks, especially in this game right now, with the amount of viable decks, you're not going to be able to get above a 60% win rate with a comp, and it just means you have to play a lot of games. And sometimes you're going to run bad for like 5 games in a row, and then you're going to fall a whole rank, and then you have to, you know,
it
make
feels
all that
really shitty to
and then
like
you make
crawl
all
out
that
of
up,
hole.
and then you're like, oh,
Yeah.
great, I just won 5 games in a row, and I'm back where I started.
Yeah, and that feels
Yeah.
miserable, but
it feels miserable, but like it's just, you know, you'll get there eventually.
It
Like,
is what it is,
My
yeah.
my speed bump was actually Plat 1. I played, not exaggerating, my Plat 1 80 LP game eventually 8 times. I lost the first 7, and I was just like, I'm so done.
Yeah.
I quit playing for like almost a week. I was just like, I'm not.
Yeah, I walked in and then he was there half asleep on the couch with a bagel.
Yeah, it was after the Lee Zed. There was a patch and something.
Yeah, Lee
nerfed
Zed
or
got way
something.
worse,
Yeah,
yeah.
Lee Zed just became not that viable all of a sudden. I was just like, all right, well,
Hey, you take that back.
It was good today. All right. Anyway,
Okay.
so
So,
moving on to the actual
actual
tournament.
tournament.
We did a lot of prep for this tournament, and actually,
And still less than I would like.
yeah, I wrote up a full article on what I thought was the best thing to be doing and how a little bit on how we got there,
Yeah,
which I'll
that's
put
up
in
on
the
Reddit.
description. Yeah, I'll put a link to that in the description. That's posted on Reddit, and you can take a look at that if you want to read along. But I know a lot of us ended up on slightly different places. A lot
I don't
because
think
our
anyone
testing
had
was
the
different.
same lineup. So there were 2 friends of ours who played that had one of them used something pretty similar to the lineup you posted.
Yeah.
Another friend of ours played Pirates, Fiora Shen, and Feel the Rush, who qualified.
Yeah, because
and
those were the
ended up
decks he
going
was
4-1.
comfortable with
Yeah.
playing that he felt had the best matchup spread.
And then I ended up on Go Hard, Feel the Rush, and Fiora Shen, just because the decks are just good. Basically, is where
basically
I was at.
yeah, I wrote that article and it was hard because at the end of like a week straight of like testing and really thinking and really trying to break the format, it was like 6 p.m. the night before the tournament, and it was like, I don't think we broke it. Like,
Yeah.
I think I have a reasonable idea what I think is going to be good, but I'm not super confident in it. And so like, I don't think any of us were like ecstatic with what we ended up with.
Yeah, but I was pretty happy with my lists. I ended up going 3-2, I think, in one match, my 2-0 match to get knocked out of potentially making top 32. I lost to some pretty bad variants and a comp that was really well set up to beat me. My comp kind of wanted to ban Fiora Shen or other kind of annoying decks. Ash Sejuani, stuff like that.
You wanted to ban the like non-traditional plans, basically.
Yeah, because
you brought
Fiora Rush is good against aggro.
yeah, you brought
and
a
goes
good
over the top.
mid-range, and you brought a good mid-range deck in TF Go Hard that has a good plan for most reasonable decks. You know, whether it be Commander Ledros or a bunch of removal spells. Those are good against normal plans, but Fiora Shen.
so
not
like
a
against
really
you wanted to ban
normal
like
plan.
Lee Zed, Tom Raka,
Yeah,
Fiora
and
Shen.
I can tell you what I
basically.
banned real quick. So
Yeah, okay.
I wrote it all down. So my first opponent was playing Zombie Anivia, Misfortune Twisted Fate, and they basically had cut every card from the TF Go Hard list that cost more than like 5 mana, and just went really low to the ground with a Misfortune.
Interesting.
And they had Ash Sejuani. And this Anivia deck that kind of goes way over the top and also is pretty good at surviving till it gets there is what I banned. I just really didn't want to play against it. And Ash Sejuani is not an ideal matchup for some of my decks, but it's definitely winnable, especially for TF Go Hard, which they banned. They banned TF Go Hard. And then so I had a pretty narrow Feel the Rush versus this Misfortune Twisted Fate game where I had to play around Ledros plus Pack Your Bags on like 3 consecutive turns, and he like kept sandbagging the Pack Your Bags till I was dead. And then we got to the point where he Ledrosed me. I was at 2, and I had a Lethal Atrocity in hand, and I had to cast it because he had 2 mana left, and if I cast Atrocity, the only card in his list that saved him was a 1 of Vile Feast because it gained him 1 life. But then he doesn't have the mana to kill me with Pack Your Bags, and then I can kill him with my attack, hopefully. And then or play like a Kindly Tavern Keeper to gain life, or he just doesn't have it and I win. And so I cast that there as opposed to potentially passing him and waiting for him to tap down out of the Vile Feast to kill me with the Pack Your Bags. Because if he would have slow rolled me, it would have passed the turn, and I didn't think that was good for me.
bad.
Yeah. So that's what and because he could then have Vengeance and stuff to stop my Atrocity. So I got that. Then we played. He played MF Twisted Fate into Fiora Shen and beat me in a very close game. And then I was left with the bad matchup of Fiora Shen into Ash Sejuani,
Had to clutch
which
out a
I
win.
narrowly won. I think that was the game that I drew 2 Bright Steel formations.
That card is so good.
Yeah,
that
great
card
in
is
the mirror.
messed up.
It's insane. Yeah, you're like, I don't want to put this 9 mana card in my like weird tempo deck that's trying to flip with Fiora. Put it in
insane.
your deck. It's so good. You play it, they can't attack that turn.
At least
and then
two
the next
of.
turn. Yeah.
Two of.
Yeah,
Two
it
of.
needs to be a
Not
2
three.
of.
Two
Yeah.
should be the number, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and then the next turn when you attack, you just get to murder their entire board. It's really brutal. With a flip Shen, like all my creatures have like 15 power.
Yeah,
'cause I
you
have
like
2 of
attack
them.
somebody for like 90 or
Yeah,
whatever.
Also,
Very
no one
sometimes.
expects when you like with Shen's just sitting there at 0 out of 4, and you're just like, well, I'm okay. There's their board's not that proud. They just slam Bright Steel.
And then
Yeah, and then you get
Shen
attacked for
flips.
50. Like,
Shen
yeah.
flips instantly, and you're like, oh,
Yeah, it's
God.
ridiculous. Yeah, okay. So then my second opponent had Ezreal Draven, Shadow Isles, Targon Control, which was Azul, Diana, and Leona.
Cool.
I believe it was like a 2-1-3 split, like 3 Leonas. And
makes
then an
sense to me.
Ash Thresh deck, which was very similar to Zombie Anivia. It's just like trying to harrowing back a bunch of champions. Didn't want to play against that. Also didn't want to play against Ezdraven. But so I banned Ash Thresh. He banned TF Gohard. He beat my Fiora Shen deck with Ezreal Draven. And then basically at that point, I just needed to beat the Azul deck twice, which I managed to do with both Fiora Shen and Field Rush.
Those both seem like pretty good matchups, probably.
Yep.
The Fiora Shen deck just kind of kills the creature decks pretty hard, and those
Yeah.
decks are both
They
playing
don't have a lot of
creatures,
removal.
so-
I mean, he was Shadow Isle, so he had more than one most, but I still don't think he even
The Shadow
had
Isles
vengeances.
removal spell does not line up. Or removal spells do also just don't line up very well against Fiora Shen usually.
The
deny is so
The
effective.
pings are good against the barrier, but vengeance is pretty clunky.
Yeah.
Okay, so then my opponent played Fiora Shen, Lee Zed, and Elise Noxus.
That's an interesting lineup that your opponent brought. I think that the bringing both Lee Sin and Fiora Shen is intriguing because they both attack the meta from a interesting side view that people a lot of the time aren't prepared for. Though I think with this tournament, people were prepared for Shen Fiora.
So he had a really
But-
bad Fiora Shen list in the mirror, so I actually banned Lee Zed because I didn't want to. I
wanna
didn't think
have
his
to
Fiora
play-
Shen list was that good, and I would rather have played against it with Field Rush. And then he banned Fiora Shen, which I assumed was what he was going to do because it's good against all 3 of his decks.
Yeah.
Because his Fiora Shen deck just didn't have Bright Steel formation, so it
was
was
not-
a huge dog in the mirror.
yeah, that's a big deal.
But this is the one where I went 0-2. I just lost with Gohard twice into a Fearsome's deck because I didn't put together Keg plus Withering Whale, and against Fiora Shen because he just curved out 4 or 5 creatures into a Genevieve and just ate my whole board, and it was just kind of over.
Yeah.
That just happens sometimes. He had good interaction. It just kind of lined up.
I would love to take a quick moment at this point to talk about that Lee Zed thing. This is the one. Lee Zed was the deck that I was the happiest with in this tournament. This is so I
And which because our friend played, and he kind of streamed it, so we got to see him play that comp that you
for
recommended.
sure. And the Lee Zed was just really good. Didn't drop a game.
Yeah.
Had
It did get
great
banned out of
matchups.
him,
got
3
banned
times.
a lot. Had great matchups all across the board. My initial plan was to try to target TF Gohard, which there actually wasn't that much of. I don't think. I think I missed the mark a little bit on that one, but I was at least very happy with the Lee Zed deck. I thought that the Lee Zed deck was kind of going to be the key to whether or not my lineup was good, and I guess the Lee Zed deck was good and the rest of my lineup maybe wasn't, but at least I got the Lee Zed one right, so I'm happy enough about that.
Yeah. And then I won one and lost one for matches that didn't matter quite as much and weren't quite as interesting, so I don't think we need to take the time to go through all of them. But there was I did a good amount of losing with TF Gohard to Wraiths, which is expected, but I do think I swung the matchup to 45-55, but you still lose those matchups 55% of the time.
Absolutely.
The thing that really stood out to me about this tournament is even if I ran into a lineup where I was I really feel like I can't beat 2 of their decks, you just ban one of them and then lose to the other and just hope you beat their 3rd deck twice. So you really need to have a robust lineup that feels where all your decks feel pretty good against the field, because there's just one deck. If your opponent's targeting a deck and you have it, they just are very likely to win that match because they can just beat it twice.
You have to win a bad matchup.
You're I have 2 great decks in this deck I'm all right with. Yeah, that all right deck is going to get beaten twice, and then you can never win a match often. Sometimes it lines up better than that for whatever reason, but yeah, so it's really important. And it also felt when I looked at comps where I was all 3 of these decks are really bad, or are very good against me, or at least two of these decks are really good against me. It definitely still felt like there was hope, and that I was still playing close games, which was really cool.
Yeah, for sure. I think that this tournament structure was pretty interesting. The single elim thing is something a lot of people have been talking about. A lot of people kind of have gripes with the single elimination, structure of the tournament. Having to go straight 5-0 into top 32 is rough. Having 5-0 from there to win it.
I mean, you just have to go undefeated.
Yeah, it's even harder.
You can't drop a match.
Yeah,
and
you
we'll
can't
kind of
lose.
see how that shakes out. I'm really excited to see what deck list people have.
I really want to
next
see
week.
the top 32.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm very excited about that. But I think it's a really hard tournament structure, so nobody we know made top 32, unfortunately.
A friend got close. He lost.
We knew
he did lose
4-1.
his fourth round, but he won his fifth.
Yeah.
And he was on. We said his list earlier, but it was Fiora Shen, Feel the Rush, and Pirates, and he really liked all of the decks, and he's a very new player. Actually, it's pretty impressive. He just never really played Expedition or anything. He got an account, bought cards 3 weeks ago, and then just played only ranked to get all the way to Masters and qualify that way. But he'd basically only played those 3 decks, so that was kind of what he had to choose.
Yeah, I recommended playing Lee Zed to him, and he was like, "Yeah, I think this is really good, but I don't have any idea how to play the deck, so I'm not gonna."
I felt really good about our meta calls and that list that the thing that you posted, the breakdown you posted, ended up being very good. Our friend who ended up playing something similar to that actually had to play Mistwraiths instead of Pirates,
which I actually he was the guy who streamed the event, so I watched all those matches, and I think that we would have actually probably won 2 more matches if he had played Pirates.
Yeah,
instead
he went
of
2-3, right?
And at the time when he brought it up, I was like, I don't think that's a huge deal. I think the decks are pretty
Mistwraiths
similar.
is pretty good, yeah.
I wrote up. I wrote an actually very long segment about why I thought Pirates was the best aggressive choice, and basically it lined up with when we were doing a lot of testing and we were trying to find solutions to problems to make our matchups better in various spots. Very, very often we said while deck building, oh yeah, this card's great against Mistwraiths, because there were so many good 3-power creatures that just weren't being played yet, right? There's just a lot of
Trapper.
Avarosan and Trapper. The box is really good. It counters the Harrowing and Wraithcaller.
Yeah. There's lots of lesson. The lesson is basically there's lots of good tech to Mistwraiths.
There are a lot of good things you can put.
Less true against Pirates, and also the tech is playing Revitalizing Roar.
Yeah,
to gain a
there's
bunch of
not
life, which
really
is not nearly as good.
Nexus healing cards that aren't being played already, was what I discovered. Because every time I'd be like, is this list still soft to Pirates because I'm not healing my Nexus? It's you play Go Hard and Vile Feast.
And some regions just don't have any access to it.
And 1 HP is not going to save you a lot.
Ezreal Draven cannot heal their Nexus at all. Yeah. And you just get
I thought that was the reason why I liked Pirates, and it ended up being a much bigger deal than I had originally thought. We played 5 matches, and I think 2 of the matches that were lost were because our opponents had really good tech versions of decks to beat Mistwraiths. And I think that if it was Pirates, obviously, we still have to play the games, but I would have been much happier with the position.
Yeah. So post-mortem, what did you like, didn't like? I think for me, the most impressive thing was I just really like this structure. I think that it would be really hard to come up with a comp, and I looked at a lot of people's 5-0 comps, and none jumped out at me as oh, this was the comp, this person figured it out. You kind of just have to anticipate the meta and then pick 3 decks that you're happy with. It's not like a Magic tournament where sometimes there'll just be the deck.
There's no dredge.
Yeah, it's not oh, dredge was the perfect thing, or oh, KCI is just broken. It just doesn't feel like that, and maybe I'll be proven wrong in the future when there are just really powerful 3 deck combinations, and maybe I'll be proven wrong in the top 32, but I don't think that's true. I think that
I agree. I think it's going to be an open field with good decks, good player
choices. Yeah,
I agree.
I think the meta is too diverse for that to be really a thing. And I mean, at this point, I think one of the most important things is just your comfort with the decks you're playing.
That's so important.
Yeah, be comfortable. Play every single matchup that exists that you will feasibly come up against, because you need to.
That's another thing. My friend that I was just talking about that went 4-1 hadn't tested against Weimer, so Vi Heimerdinger, with either of his decks, and just didn't really know how to play against the deck, and it cost him a match, and that will just happen.
Yep.
It's hard. There's so many decks. But I think that the single elimination thing, I'm not as hugely upset about it as a lot of other people. I think it's the only real way to make tournaments flow smoothly in a reasonable amount of time.
I also just like having this many people qualified.
yeah, it's
It
a
didn't
lot of
feel
people.
like it
which
wasn't
feels
only
fun.
200 people qualifying. Like
Yeah.
it was 1,224.
It's achievable.
Yeah, it's doable, right? With you know, you don't have to quit your job to be able to make.
And there's community tournaments,
Top
and
700.
maybe I would like them to see like other not as punishing tournaments, and especially if there's like grand finals for the year, I would think single elimination would kind of really suck.
Yeah, I would prefer double elimination or
At least,
whatever,
yeah.
At least.
But I think this is good for now, at least, and I'm excited to see what other things
the
they come up with
in-game
in the future.
client
So good.
was phenomenal. I mean, really the best in-game tournament client I have ever seen.
Yeah, I
Period.
ran to grab some food during a thing when we'd already seen each other's decks, and it auto-picked my deck and auto-banned my deck, and it banned the right deck and picked the right deck, so the client was great.
Just let it go. let it run away.
Wow.
All right, so I think we're all looking forward to that, but I'm pretty close to ready to put a bow on the seasonal tournament. Does anybody
Absolutely.
have any final points that they want to go over, discuss before we move on to the next thing?
It's just good that we proved who the best competitive Legends of Runeterra player on the podcast is. You know, one of us got to play.
He got there.
Yeah.
he got there.
Yeah, all
He got
right.
there.
All right.
I am happy with my result. I'm happy with getting the card back. But you know, obviously, I got on the good side of variance a couple times to get there.
3-2 is definitely a good result for this tournament. You know,
Yeah.
it's within the upper 500 players
In the region.
in America.
Yeah,
in the
look
Americas.
at me.
So definitely anyone who got that card back, congrats. Anyone who queued to top 32, congratulations to them.
Awesome.
Well earned. I'm sure a lot of hard hours went into it. So good luck. And let's take a look forward into spoiler season. Oh, I am so
yeah.
excited about these spoilers. These are so sweet.
We have a friend who's a Victor main, and I think we might finally get him to start playing Legends of Runeterra.
Indeed. So I think Hugh's got the cards pulled up here. So why don't you take us wherever you want to start, Hugh?
Okay, yeah. So the first card spoiled December 6th. We got just a single card, to my knowledge, Mechanized Mimic. 5 mana on attack, grant me all keywords on allies. It's a 3/4 and with augment. Augment is the new keyword. It says whenever you play a created card, grant me +1/+0. So the creature with augment will get +1/+0 whenever you play a card that
Permanently.
was- yeah,
Permanently
permanently.
+1/+0.
Granted,
And
no-
if you couldn't tell from the name, it is a Piltover and Zon card, and all the ones we're talking about today will be
Yeah,
Piltover
we've
and
only
Zon
seen
cards.
PNZ
Yeah.
cards.
In the like Victor and his followers and spells batch.
Yep, this is similar to as we've seen in the past. This is just Victor and basically his
his
crew.
posse. Yeah,
exactly.
I was when I read that keyword, my first thought was whenever you create a card, well, that's awful niche. And then it got me thinking, wait a second. Like there are so many things that create cards in this
All
game.
right, let's do a quick one. Ready? Like Chumpwump, Ezreal, Draven,
Anything that makes gems,
anything that makes gems.
Jinx.
Yeah.
Oh my god! Wait,
Yeah.
I didn't
yes.
even.
there's so
Yes.
many of them. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's so many.
In my head, I was just like, well, there's just not that
yeah,
many.
puff
But
caps.
I completely forgot about puff caps and gems.
Just literally
Yeah.
anything that says like enter the battlefield or when I'm summoned, magic player bleeding through.
yeah,
will happen.
Sonic Wave.
Yeah,
like,
anything that creates a card in your hand.
Ezreal attacking
wow,
gives
I
you
can't
a
wait to
created
do
mystic
gems,
shot.
elusive
Yeah,
cat.
stuff
Yeah,
that puts
there's
stuff
a
in
lot
your
of
deck.
stuff.
Stuff that like puts cards in Go Hard.
Go Hard creates more copies of Go
God.
Hard. Yeah.
Yeah. So if
Eclipse
any-
Dragon creates a Celestial and they're like,
Yeah.
Raven
So-
creates a thing. There's a lot.
When you mouse over the card, if it says created by blank, it counts, and that's kind of how you know. So like recalling unit.
So
won't do
counterfeit
anything.
copies counts.
Yes. Yeah. Of
Oh
course.
my
Counterfeit copies.
Things shuffled in by Parade Electro Rig
Yeah.
should count.
Yeah. There's a ton of. Yes.
There's a lot. Yeah, there's a
Penpop
lot.
Pickpocket, the one that hits them and creates one of the things from their deck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That one
There,
where-
there
Oh
are
my God.
there are way more of this effect than you think.
Captain
All right.
Farron.
Oh yeah.
So the next set of spoilers that we got to see was a lot more. We have a 1 mana.
Oh,
one...
real quick. Do we want to talk about that card? The
Mechanized Mimic.
Mechanized Mimic. It's like kind of medium, right?
Yeah.
I'm not super thrilled by this card.
I mean, it's so at face value, neither am I. But there's just some card
It could
evaluations
be good.
Weird for me in this game. I
It's
still
hard.
don't have a handle on it yet. Like I looked at, a good example is Jack the Winner last. Like obviously, cards insane.
And
Cards.
creates cards.
Incredible
For
and
augment.
creates cards. And I looked at it for the first time when it was a 5/6, and I was like, "This is all right," and the card was nuts. It needed to be nerfed. Like,
and it's still great.
and
It
it's
is
still
still
amazing.
It's still
Yeah,
great.
it's still-
Yeah.
still like one of my favorite cards, and I just like completely didn't value that card nearly as highly as I should have. So like card evaluation.
I also
still
thought like
difficult.
Gangplank was bad, and he's not. He's
He is
I
not
thought
bad.
Twisted Fate was bad.
Oh
I
my
also thought
god!
Twisted
Get
Fate
off.
was
You
bad.
thought
Get off-
Twisted Fate was
get
bad
off the
too.
podcast. No, I always thought it was great.
No, I don't
know
think
what
so.
you're talking about.
I have proof.
I remember. I don't think a
I could
single
see
one
the
in
chat
our,
history.
Yeah.
Our whole Fred's chat history was like, this card's sweet, probably bad.
I have receipts
Medium.
for you talking shit about Twisted Fate, so don't
Yeah,
even.
yeah. All right.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, the next set of cards that we saw were, let's see, what do we got?
It was a card and a bunch of things and the 3 cards it created, right?
Yes. So we have a 2-drop called Calculated Creations, 2-mana burst spell. Create an armed gearhead, neandroid, or ballistic bot in hand. So an armed gearhead is a 1-mana 1/1 with augment, and I didn't actually notice
Quick
this
attack.
Quick attack.
yeah.
I almost said first strike.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to just like it's kind of easy to just like miss random like ability icons.
Yeah, because
on
they're
cards.
just little. They're just very small. They don't actually say the word on them. So 1-mana 1/1 first strike augment. That actually seems pretty decent. Let's see. The 2-drop is ballistic bot. Round start. Create an ignition in hand. Ignition says 1 mana, slow, fleeting.
And it's
Deal
a-
1 to the enemy nexus.
and it's an 1/3 with augment.
And it is a 1/3 with augment. Which is actually a pretty decent body for a 2-drop.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Especially with
Certainly,
augment.
yeah.
And then the last card out of those 3 is Neandroid, which is a 3-mana 1/3 augment elusive, which
Yeah.
is going to be
Good.
probably the. I think
Probably
that
good.
card's great.
Yeah.
I think that my instinct here is that the 2-drop will be the default choice for
Do
decks
we-
that are doing this thing, because it's like seems like such a good way
It's a
to like
really
trigger
good
plunder, raid, Sejuani Gangplank triggers, and it's just an aggressively slanted thing, minus the fact that you have to play the 2-mana premium of
Well, except I think that are all of these cards ones that you can put in your deck, or do they only created by this
I
card?
don't know.
yeah, I
And
don't
they
that's
have a
know
rarity
either.
symbol? If they have a rarity symbol, so that's the rule. If they have a rarity symbol, they're a card you can put in your deck. Caustic Cask for some reason.
I did not know
Yeah.
that actually.
Yeah,
didn't know that.
But if
Okay,
they
that's
don't
good to
have a
know.
rarity symbol, then you can.
Okay, in that case, yeah, they're all cards you can put in your deck. Neandroid,
that's great.
Armed Gearhead, Ballistic Bot, all cards.
I
of
wonder
their own
if
right.
if you create a card in your hand and it has augment and then you play it, does it like trigger off itself?
No,
Interesting.
I'm
No.
pretty sure it does not.
yeah,
okay.
Obviously, I
wouldn't- I
don't
wouldn't
know
guess
for
so.
certain.
Because this
This card
creates
gets
them.
way better if that's true.
Yeah, I don't think.
Yeah, I would doubt it too.
I don't think this 1-mana 1/1 is automatically a 1-mana 2/1 first strike.
I mean,
by
that's
itself.
not like crazy.
Only if you
It's
play the
not something you
2-mana
have to pay
burst
a
spell
2-mana upfront.
first.
Sure, that's
Right.
fair, but like I don't think that's how it works. We'll see.
Yeah, I wouldn't assume so either, but I guess we'll see. Regardless, I think the 2-mana card is pretty good.
I agree.
I actually
what's its name
expect that
again?
to see a lot of play. It's kind of doing
Calculated
a sleeper.
Creations.
Calculated Creations, excellent. Yeah, I think that card, Calculated Creations, is pretty good because I think most of those bodies are pretty good.
Yeah, and you just want to be playing a lot of created cards. So cheap created cards are good, and the fact that it makes ones every turn is even better.
Yeah, and they're creatures that are going to be very and the versatility is big, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think the one that makes ignitions is going to be really good sometimes. I think the elusive one is going to be really good sometimes. I think the 1-mana 1/1 will be the worst one, probably.
Especially defined off of this card.
Yeah.
Like, once you've paid 2 mana, you very rarely want a 1-mana 1/1. But like in a deck, it might just still be fine.
Sometimes you'll be playing against discard aggro or whatever, and you just need to put another 1/1 into play to
Yeah,
block.
at some point, I mean, the meta will shift probably in a way that makes it so one health creatures are not really, really awful and don't feel terrible.
Yeah,
One
you
health
know. Go
creatures
hard
are in a
Pretty
they were
bad spot
really
right
bad
now.
when Make It Rain was good, and they're still not great. And
Yeah,
so
because Go Hard's good.
yeah.
Yeah, it would feel really bad to pay
Withering
3
Wail
mana
is
for
everywhere.
It would be real bad to pay 3 mana.
It's funny because those cards are good when 1 toughness cards are good, and then that makes 1 toughness cards bad, which makes those cards worse. It's a cycle.
Yeah.
Yep, it's a cycle.
Anyway, the last couple cards in
And
this.
the exciting part.
Yeah, time for the main event.
Yeah, actually. So the next 2 cards in that visual spoiler are Hexcore Foundry, which is the other landmark for Piltover and Zon, since it's technically 2 regions. So that
Interesting. I mean,
got
it's not
2
technically
landmarks.
2 regions in the number of champions or cards it has, but I understand why they did it and think it's neat.
Yeah, I'm here for it.
Anyway, Hexcore Foundry says 3 mana, landmark, round start, all players draw 1.
This card is interesting to me.
Yeah.
And
For
we
a
all
lot of
have
reasons.
differing opinions, kind of.
Let's just go around. What do you think, Noble?
Okay, first off, something I want to note that people were talking about on Reddit and is kind of neat. It says all players, which kind of means they're leaving it open to potentially having more than 2 players in a game, and could be interesting in some kind of form of like multiplayer. A lot of people, I don't want to like fight against internet people who aren't here, but we're saying that they think that this card is good in aggressive decks, which I think is absolutely not the case. I think it's interesting. I think it's not particularly powerful. It really doesn't provide an effect that is as powerful as let's just be clear. This effect would be very, very good if it didn't do both of you. Like, that card would be insane. Very powerful. But the fact that it's symmetrical means that it's going to have a lot less effect on the game as far as outcarding your opponent. And let's not forget, you used a card to put this card in play, and 3 mana, and a slot on your board.
And your opponent sees the benefit before you do.
No, you both draw the card at the same time, because on the next round, you both draw a card. But they will have with the attack token, potentially, depending on if you played it on your attack turn or not. It is a little different than Magic, so it's interesting to wrap your head around.
Yep, that is, yeah.
I think that this card has potential to be good in decks, but these effects have historically in other card games been like good in multiples, and you really can't put that many landmarks on your board in this game.
Very true.
And so I kind of think that it's unlikely to
I don't
be very
think you
good.
can play more than one of it if you're playing even one of it.
Like, you could put 3 in your deck, but you don't want to put more than 1 on your board.
Yeah.
That makes sense, yeah. And I just think that, there are a lot of games in this game where you one or both players ends the game with like 6+ cards in hand, and actually this card is kind of good at punishing those decks, because it really doesn't matter. Like, making your Targon opponent who's playing Aesol draw an extra card every turn might dig them towards a specific card they need, but is very unlikely to be going to shift the balance based on the number of cards they're drawing quantity. Because they're an invoke deck. They like win the game with a bunch of like casting like 1 8-mana spell a turn and like drawing them extra cards from their deck. Like,
probably
they're constrained as mana, not cards already. So this card has the potential to be good on decks that have plenty of mana and not very many cards.
Cool. Good summary. To continue, I think that this card is not good. And people are talking about playing it in their Twisted Fate decks, which I will not do, nor do I encourage anyone out there to do.
But we have been wrong about things involving Twisted Fate. I mean,
I could be wrong. Obviously, this is with a grain of salt. This game's still relatively new, and I think in general, everybody realized that they were pretty bad at card evaluation.
For sure.
So, this is all with a grain of salt, and obviously this is just my opinion, but I would not put this card in my Twisted Fate decks. I think the Twisted Fate decks draw plenty of cards already, and their biggest advantage is at the end of the day, they just end up with more cards than you. And I think by playing this Howling Mine, by playing this landmark, you're just not going to be able to outcard them anymore. And your infinite 2/2s plan is going to succumb to their infinite 5/5s plan.
Yeah.
Whatever it might be.
Especially if those 5/5s are 1 mana and Yetis.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I think the most enticing opinion I've heard is that you would play it as like a 1-of in a control deck as like a finisher. Which Hugh actually opened my eyes up to, is because initially I was like, I don't want this card in my Twisted Fate decks. I don't really want to put this card in my aggressive decks. Like, the only card I can even maybe, it's like discard aggro is like the only deck that I could think would maybe
harder to flip.
That I could think would maybe want this card, and then it makes Jinx harder to flip. It would probably be instead of Jinx. All right, I'm off it.
Yeah.
Though Hugh made the best case I've heard yet, so I'll let him take it for that.
Yeah. So my thought. I saw this card and I was like, first of all, I really want this card to be good. So I'm kind of trying real hard to justify it to myself, because I like this card personally. But my initial thought was, okay, I can't think of a deck right off the top of my head that I want to just jam this into 3-of. Let's go. But the main thing I thought was that if I'm playing this card, it's not going to be an aggro, like these two said. I think it's probably going to be in something more on the control end, and I definitely don't want this card to come down on turn 3 as my 3-drop. I want this card to be on like turn 7 or 8. I've fully stabilized, and I feel like in a pretty advantageous position, and I don't picture any other place I want to play this right now. Obviously, like, we'll see.
Yeah, maybe this card finds a home as like a 1-of in like Karina control.
Okay, so
but that's like
I would like to say
I can think of
Karina control is kind of actually an exception to the point I'm about to make. But I think This card game is unique in that it feels like when you've stabilized,
You haven't fully
you
stabilized.
haven't as much because
Yeah.
all minions can attack the turn that you play them. You do only get to attack every other turn, but it can lead to really awkward turns where you cast the Runation, and then you with their last 4 mana get to deploy like 5 power and then just open attack, and there's very little you can do about it. Because of the cost of removal spells versus the cost of aggressively statted minions, like control decks need to either play minions, which is the most often solution, but they usually play less of them. And then you're like vengeancing 3/3s to stay alive, and your vengeance costs 7 mana, and their 3/3 cost 3 mana. And it's pretty easy to get behind. So control decks need to be able to turn the corner. They need to be able to cast Commander Ledros and kill you in 2 turns. They need to be able to cast Feel the Rush. They need to be able to flip Karma and make the game. Those are the games that really feel out of reach, is when your opponent has a flipped Karma.
Flipped Karma are the ones where it
that
feels
is
like you can literally never lose.
Yeah. And I still have lost games with flipped Karmas to mostly deep, but
That's pretty much the only
not
one
having
you
a
can lose
deck.
to,
Yeah, it was not great. So that point where you're stabilized and want to outcard them, I think might happen less than in other card games. I do, however, think, and it kind of just got into my head, that this might be a really good tool for Piltover's on decks that use things like Parade Electro Rig or counterfeit copies when your goal is to draw a bunch of copies of the same card, and you want to draw a lot of them in turn. Or the Veteran Investigator deck that's looking to make your opponent run out of cards by counterfeiting copies, Veteran Investigators, and playing multiple Veteran Investigators in a
clearly
turn.
like a slam dunk into your infinite milk deck.
Yeah, and I actually think that those decks are like
Maybe,
pretty real. Like
maybe
in this game, like,
this is the bump that they needed to be very real.
Stuff like
Maybe.
Starlit Seer decks that look to play a ton of cheap spells onto a unit. This both helps you find your like 6 units faster and also draws you more spells to fuel your Starlit Seer.
That is
so
pretty
I think
relevant.
that we're just like
I
kind
really-
of in a spot where this is good in combo decks.
Yeah, if Fizz could be played in that deck, right? Because with Starlit Seer and this Piltover's online mark, obviously we can't play Fizz.
Yeah,
but-
that's pretty awkward.
because that's like the normal tune of that deck is like Fizz,
Play Ezreal
Starlit Seer,
instead.
and a bunch of that. And maybe Ezreal's good enough.
He
Maybe
has
it's Teemo.
elusive.
Maybe Teemo's good enough. He has elusive.
Yeah, that's fair.
Play Teemo, Starlit Seer in this thing. Maybe
Oh,
that's
God.
good. I don't know.
And Sejuani, you can do the Teemo Sejuani thing. You can
Yeah,
make a bunch
that
of
could
combos.
be
the
reasonable.
Timo Sejuani thing might make a resurgence. Oh, I hate that so much.
All right. Well,
I
anyway,
think this is a cool combo card.
I'll be pleasantly surprised if this card's good. I think.
Wow,
Yeah.
we spent a lot longer talking about this particular one than the other ones, and I think it's much
It's the
more
most
interesting.
interesting
It's
by
very,
a lot.
very
Yeah.
interesting.
It's
you know.
also notably kind of random. It's a rare landmark. All the other landmarks have been epic.
I did not
kinda
notice
neat.
that.
That's weird.
I
Anyway,
think they probably was to control the number of epics in the region, and they didn't want to like. But
well, that
and
makes
it's kinda
sense.
neat.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So let's
Anyway,
move on.
Move on to
Yeah.
the last card, which is, I think, definitely the best one so far that we're going to see. 4 mana, slow. It's called Aftershock. Deal 3 to anything or destroy a landmark.
This card is super sweet. It is
good.
everything that I want in a removal spell. Scorched Earth was good, and it had both destroy a damaged unit or destroy a landmark, which was a good modality. But this card is like infinitely modal. Like it literally always can do something because it can go face, it can kill the landmark, it can shoot a creature. It is so that control thing that I was just talking about, how they can open attack you, is the reason that fast spells are really important, because when you get your mana back up, they get to attack you, and you can't do anything unless you have faster burst spells. So this being slow makes it a little worse of a...
Yeah, I believe
card
because
like
it
that.
is slow, you can't play 3 of them. But I do plan on playing
I would
one
put 3
or
of this
at
in,
least
like every deck if it was
You're gonna
fast.
put- yeah, I would play 3 of this in every deck if it was fast. As it is, probably play 2, maybe 1.
Wow.
In most decks.
I think I'm playing 3.
You still think you're sliding?
I think I'm
It
playing
is
3.
just like this
It
card
is really
starts
good.
off as Decimate for 1 less damage and 1 less mana, and then like gets way better.
If it didn't say it could hit face, I would think
fair.
about putting less in, but it can always be relevant. It could be that extra little reach you need to end the game.
That's
because
true, but I
it's so
find
much.
I find myself missing on like lethal a lot of the time because I don't have priority, not because I don't have the damage. And obviously,
Well, that makes
okay,
sense.
A lot
like,
of the
you
time
don't have
is
enough turns to play all your Decimates.
Yeah,
or whatever.
a lot of the
that
time-
happens all the time.
Yeah.
a lot of the time is clearly an exaggeration, but it does frequently happen that you lose because you run out of time because your opponent kills you because before you get priority to put a Commander Ledros or a Decimator or a lethal whatever on the stack.
Yeah.
A lethal pack your bags even or whatever on the stack. and then you just die before you get priority.
Why fast and burst spells are so good. So
Yeah.
we all like this card. It's modal. Hugh lied to you. This is not the last card.
Well, this is the last card, and this visual spoiler is what I meant.
Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
There's a very important other card. Yes,
Yeah,
there is
yeah,
a
we
very
got
important other card.
Victor.
Which is the champion.
Yeah.
Victor.
So we'll get to that in just a moment.
Yeah, let's
I
give
see.
Victor.
Oh, that's right. There was a whole. I for some reason thought this card came out at the same time Victor did, but it didn't.
No,
there's
it
just
didn't.
a whole
No,
other
there's a whole nother
today.
batch today.
Yeah,
exactly.
From this
Yeah.
morning, hot and fresh off the press.
Oh yeah,
Victor.
the Twitter press.
Yes.
So,
Twitter press.
Victor. Hold on.
Oh,
So he
enhance.
He costs 4.
Yeah, he costs 4. He's a 4-mana 3/5 with augment.
Wait, he's a 3/5. He starts as a 3/5.
Yeah, he starts as a 3/5.
Wait, I thought he started as a 2/4.
I think you're looking at the flip side.
Oh, I'm looking at the flip side. There we go. There we go. I was like,
I said the same thing. Me and Nova looked at each other. We were like, "Holy shit, he's a 3/5!" Like,
Yeah,
whoa.
yeah.
no,
Skirts
yeah, I'm
insane.
looking at the flip side.
Yeah,
There we go.
okay.
There we go.
2/4 seems better.
Yeah, it is a 2/4, but still good. 2/4 augment for 4. Round start, create a hex core upgrade in hand, and he levels up when you've played 8 or more created cards.
Which
So
we have mentioned is more cards than you think.
Yeah, there's a lot. Most decks create cards without even realizing
It is
they're doing
back alley barkeep's time.
Please.
You counterfeit copy, you create more copies of back alley barkeep, and then they create even more cards.
Yeah, I'm here for it.
all right, so hex core upgrade is a 1-mana slow spell. It says grant Victor a random keyword.
All right, so let's talk about what random keyword means.
Yeah, it's pretty
in
important.
this game, there's lots of bounds on randomness. For example, there are certain cards that say like create a random unit, and based on exactly what the card says, it'll like depend on if it's from your region or not.
Yep.
But for keywords, as we know from Plunder Bot, no, not called Plunder Bot, it's Plunder Poro and Poro Bot. Yeah, I see. I thought Plunder was the word in both, but that wouldn't make sense. There are 3 kind of types of keywords that are coded in this game. There are negative keywords like vulnerable, ephemeral, immobile.
Yep.
And you don't want your units to randomly gather.
Wait, you mean
Immobile. Can't block or attack. Can't attack.
Yeah, kegs have it.
So
Oh,
does,
they have vulnerable
so does
and
Monkey
immobile.
Idol.
I didn't know that was a I didn't know that was keyword. I thought it was just like couldn't block.
Oh yeah. No, it's a keyword.
Yeah. Okay.
So those you can't get. It would be really lame if your creatures could get those. That would
Yeah,
not
if
be
you
good.
could cast this 1-mana thing and give your Victor Ephemeral, I would never play this card. So
Yeah.
good
It-
on them to catch that one.
Yeah, is the hex core 2 mana or 1 mana?
1 mana.
1 mana. Oh, I thought it was 2 mana in my head. I think that's because when I was theory crafting Victor, I was like, it's probably 2 mana. But anyway, so then there are 2 other types of keywords. There are normal keywords, which Victor can get, and then there are like special keywords. And the special keywords are things like deep is an example of ones that he can't get. Double attack, which I think is because it shares space with quick attack, that you can't get. Things like barrier and spell shield also are not, well, keyworded. They're not like keywords that you can get. They're not keywords that like that 3/4 gets. But all of these other things are both acquired by that 3/4, gotten by Victor's spell. So anything like elusive, quick attack. There are many more.
Elusive, quick attack, life
fearsome,
steal, fierce. Fury.
regeneration.
There's a lot of them.
Yeah, Fury is a really good one. Fury and Regeneration are good ones to keep in
Yeah.
mind that you might not think of because they're more recent, but are very good for sure. I guess Regeneration isn't recent; it's on Garen.
Yeah,
but
so, like,
a Tough is another one.
Yeah, and then when you create 8 cards, he flips right into. Do you have the flip version?
Yeah, the flip version just says your created cards cost 1 less.
And he's a 3/5 base.
and he's a 3/5 now.
And he still makes the hex score.
yes. Yeah. Round start, he still makes a hex core upgrade in hand.
I think so. I think this card's good.
Yes,
Right?
I agree.
I agree. I think this card is good.
Yeah, I think he's really sweet. First off, I absolutely love the design. I think it's sweet. I think augment is actually going to be a really interesting keyword. I'm excited to, basically build my own Victor Soulflare type thing that's just going to have all the keywords and kill people. I think that his body
He can get Challenger. That one's really
he
good.
can get Challenger. Yeah, Challenger's really good. I think that his body is a little bit of an issue because he's like a 4-mana 2/4. So like, if you're like on turn 4, you're like, I'm gonna cast my Victor. He's gonna do sweet stuff, and your opponent's like, okay, I'm casting a 7/6 crowd favorite. Kill you. You could find yourself in a problem
Yeah,
pretty
he's a little
quickly.
bit below rate. He
all
won't-
bodies are
Yeah.
beautiful, but Victor's body is
It's a little
smaller
soft
than
and a
we would
little
like.
smaller.
Yeah.
Might need to put him on a protein diet, buff him up a little bit. But I think that he's probably a really good mid-range threat. Most likely. I think that
I think if the board is stable, he's
he's going to be
very
really
threatening.
good. Yeah.
But if you're behind on board, it's going to be a little rough.
Yeah, there's going to be
But
it
he
feels
does
like
usually trade into 2 mid-sized units and removal spells. Like there are very few spells that just one shot deal 4 damage straight to him.
Yeah,
so, like,
removal spells he will
he'll
take for
probably
one.
like block
Yeah,
a 2/2
it's
and
gonna
then
be-
get Mystic Shotted.
and I
it's
think
still
that
fine.
the thing about Victor is that it's probably going to be I think if you're on the other side of the table, it feels like you're always going to have at least one thing that you're going to be sweating as a keyword that would be really bad for you. Right?
Yeah.
I can't really envision many board states where it's like, I don't care what keyword he gets. Like, I'm thinking about it, and I think there's almost always going to be like at least one that feels like a disaster. And that's really powerful when, you know, especially if you're the one playing Victor, you know, you're obviously not going to hit every time, but like, if every time you cast a spell, you have like a 1 in 8 or a 1 in 10 of it being insane, like, those points really add up over time, especially if you're getting one every turn.
Yeah, and also it's never going to be bad. Like,
Yeah,
there's
like
no-
Lifesteal is going to be insane against a lot of the aggressive decks.
Oh, Lifesteal
Regeneration is going to be
the most debilitating.
Regeneration is going to be insane.
Elusive against
when
per-
coupled with some things. Elusive,
Yeah,
really, really
Overwhelm when he
good.
gets big. So I've been looking through my client to remember all the keywords, and Overwhelm is a big one, and another
Yeah,
huge one is Scout. Scout is a keyword you can get, and if you just like randomly give this Victor like Scout and Elusive or whatever, people will just die.
Sometimes you'll just kill people.
Especially in the region that has the card Sumpworks map that I don't know if
Yeah.
anyone knows what that does off the top of their head. but
Ally Elusive.
Grant an ally elusive permanently for 2 mana.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
and
really
so with Sumpwork Scavenger, which is the Allegiance card, if you want to play a thing, and it creates the Sumpwork map, so it even is going to trigger
let's
your.
go.
Yep. And it costs 0 when it's created by that card.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
in-
really
I'm
good.
into it.
It's all good.
Yeah, I think that this card's going to be quite good. A Challenger is going to be really good a lot of the time. Like, I just think that there's quite a lot to be gained from this Hex Core, and it's probably going to impact Victor more than I think you might guess initially, which I think is going to be make him quite good.
True to his flavor as a champion in League of Legends, he seems very versatile,
Yeah, very versatile.
and which is awesome. They've done an amazing job.
Porting
It's really
the
so
champions.
good.
The flavor is
capturing-
excellent.
I started playing League after I started playing Legends of Runeterra, and I would like play a League champ, be like, oh, it makes sense that this is what he does, or like this is what their champ does. Like Garen likes to like basically auto attack. He wants to strike. Like, you know, Katarina's very like flighty kind of, and she like deals damage
resets
and then she leaves, and then like
in and
Yeah.
out, kill you type thing. Yeah, and then let's see, we've got more cards right here.
Yeah. So, something that's really interesting about Victor is his champ spell. Like in League of Legends, he
Really
upgrades.
good.
He
Yeah,
upgrades
and
his
I think
champ
it's
spell.
good too, which I think is a big reason as to why Victor's good. But
Yes.
yeah, I'll let you
so
go ahead.
anyway, his champ
say
spell
it.
is Victor's Death Ray, Mark 1 through 3. So the way his champ spell works is it says it's a one. It starts as 1 mana, fast, deal 1 to a unit, and then create a Death Ray Mark 2 in the top 3 cards of your deck. Shuffle a Victor into your deck. The 2 mana version deals 2 to a unit and shuffles Mark 3 into your deck. And Death Ray Mark 3 just is the final phase and just
Deals
says
3
deal
damage.
3 to a unit.
Yeah,
So
I think that
so
card
they
is
all
good.
hit only units, and they're all fast, and they all have their
1,
1
2, or
through 3
3
mana
damage.
and deal 1 through 3 damage. Yeah.
yes, exactly.
I think that champ spell is really good for a big reason as to why I said, like, it feels like some of the times you're going to play Victor on 2/4 and he's going to be like a pretty bad body against an aggressive deck. But if you happen to just randomly draw 2 Victors in those games, which normally if you have a card that's bad against aggro in your deck and you happen to draw 2 copies, you're going to be really hurting. But the second copy is actually really quite good against aggro. You're never really going to be sad to shuffle like Mystic Shot on top of your deck against aggro. Same with a better Get Excited or
Yeah.
whatever. 3 mana deal 3 and 2 mana deal 2.
And we
are
just
both-
talked about how important fast spells are at stopping
both going to
aggro
be
rushes.
both going to be things that you're more than happy to draw at any point. It's going to have to really change how your opponent plays because of the threat, because
Yeah.
they know
It's like in Raged Yeti, they just
they're
like
gonna
have
know
to
about
guess
it,
whether or
yeah.
not you drew the good card.
and can they play around it or not? Have they drawn it yet or not? All of those things. And I think that his champ spell being that efficient against aggressive decks is going to be a real boon to actually being able to play Victor as a 3-of in your decks.
Yeah, and I think that was the end of the spoiler for that.
No, actually, there's one more card, which I'm actually really excited about.
Yeah.
Now, I haven't really gotten a chance to think about it much because
Well, that's what
Now's
this
the
is
time.
for.
Yeah,
exactly.
What do we got?
So the last card is 2 mana burst called Iterative Improvement. It says pick a follower, create a copy of it in hand with +1/+1. So basically, think Fading Memories, but 2 mana instead of 0, and
Doesn't give ephemeral.
it doesn't give ephemeral,
What
and
is
it has
this-
+1/+1.
Or the card that this card is much, much better than? Does anyone know what that card is? Blood for Blood?
Oh my god.
Wow, yeah,
the
that
like
card is awful.
bad Vladimir thing. It does this basically, but it has to deal 1 to the unit. So it's not burst and can get countered by removal spells, and also takes 1 health off your unit. And it's fast.
Yeah.
So it can be countered
And it
and
can
actively
be
bad.
Yeah,
it
it
can,
can,
actively bad.
and used to be 3 mana.
Did that card say only one of your followers
It
or
said pick
any
a
follower?
follower.
Just like
follower.
Fading
So just like
Memories.
Fading Memories.
That's people don't do that enough. I don't think it's
Yeah,
really
no,
good.
I
Yeah,
love
being able
Fading
to steal
Memories.
your
It's just-
opponent's stuff is really good. Yeah,
yeah.
I think that card's good. I'm not certain it will see play.
I think it'll see play.
Okay,
Right, tell us why.
why?
Because okay.
Because it's good and sweet.
I just think being able to, so anytime your opponent, think about how often your opponent plays a creature, you're just like, oh god, I don't have a clean way to deal with this creature. How often would you
That is a
want-
very good point.
how
That does
often
happen a
would you-
lot.
Yeah. How often would you want to
Like
be
Vengeance your Raven, and you're like, surprise.
Yeah, here's
Yeah.
another one.
like how often is it a clean way to deal with your opponent's creature by saying I pay an extra 2 mana, like I pay an extra 2 mana with my spell mana,
But it's gonna be
create
better.
a strictly better version of the creature you just played against me. So you suddenly cannot attack into me with that creature.
Yeah, it's gonna be and a lot of the
Yeah, if they just like play
Yeah.
a 3/4 on turn 3, you can just like
Make it a
Make a
4/5.
4/5,
Make
play
their
it.
creature but a 4/5.
yeah, that is actually
really good.
so
actually.
relevant. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
All
what
right,
I
you
think.
sold me. I think this card's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that seems really good. Like, especially because you can use spell mana to do it, right? It's not like you have to pay
Yeah.
the 2 mana as creature mana, so you'd have to do it a full 2
Yeah,
turns
it's an-
later if you just happen to have 2 spell mana lying
If you
around.
plan for it, it
you
doesn't
can
tax your
basically,
curve.
Yeah, you can basically always one-up whatever their play is. And obviously there's creatures that have, more power than toughness, but against, creatures with the same power and toughness, you're just always going to be better than them.
Yeah.
That's a pretty big advantage.
Yeah.
You can also copy like Commander Ledros or some stuff like that. Once,
Yeah,
if
like
you
the
end up
really
in the late
insane
game.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's really and this is really not more complicated than that. Like that's
I'm in.
my
You sold me.
If we actually think about it,
I changed
it
my mind. That
compares-
does sound good.
I actually think a better comparison than the ephemeral thing is perhaps Stalking Shadows, because Stalking Shadows does this really important thing that is really big part of why the Mistwraith deck is powerful. Is it takes creatures with really good when summoned abilities and then lets you do them twice, and it also lets you double up. Like for example, if you draw some Wraithcallers or Mistwraiths, you want to draw a lot of Wraithcallers or Mistwraiths. If you want to draw some Frenzied Skitterers, the second Frenzied Skitterer is even better. So
Yeah, you're
it
right.
lets you double up on the cards that are good with themselves and kind of like craft what card it is. And it makes up for the tempo loss with the +1/+1. So I just think this card is, probably quite good.
Especially, even more I think about it, especially because a lot of cards are so intrinsically synergy driven. I'm thinking a lot of the champions, like, for example,
you can't
Victor.
copy a champion.
Yeah,
but
for example,
I see.
Victor flips when you have, played 8 created cards. So like, copying up a thing that's creating cards or whatever can make
Back
you
alley
flip,
barkeep, man.
can make you flip faster, right? Even if you were playing with Ezreal, copying something that's letting you target something, or whatever,
like
could flip it like an unstable volitian
the
or a
stunned. It's not called a stable. It's augmented experimenter, Alex.
augmented experimenter. I
Stable
say it every
Volitian is
time.
the bad 4 for 5 that gets bigger.
I do it literally every time.
It's augmented. But
Isn't that
Augmented
also an 8
experimenter.
drop?
No,
it used to be very expensive, and then they changed what it did and made it just like a 4/4.
Yeah, they changed it with the Mage Seeker upgrade.
If it has a Mage Seeker
Got it.
thing, yeah.
God, that's not a card you see almost
but, like,
ever.
I say the wrong one every time. It's named augmented experimenter.
Especially if like spell mana is pretty free on a turn. Like if you would end the turn wasting 1 spell mana, you can instead have only 2 instead of 3, and then kind of get to play this card for cheaper. And like it. You can't really play it in the current TF decks, but like doubling up on a creature that draws cards when summoned for like TF or whatever.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Fortune
yeah.
Croaker, sure.
Yeah, Pool Shark.
It's a 3/4
You would
if
have
you
to be
do that.
putting
That's
this in a
pretty
PNZ
big.
deck, but that's not crazy. There have been plenty of Twisted Fate PNZ decks with Ezreal.
Yeah, it
Thanks,
doesn't
yeah.
seem entirely
Yeah,
unreasonable.
Ezreal Jinx. The amount of times there was a Jinx TF deck floating around for a while that just like played a bunch of rummages to like 1 turn flip TF. I thought was kind of
And
sweet.
Jinx, yeah, that's pretty sick actually.
It was pretty sweet. I'm into it. All right. Do we have any final thoughts for the cards spoiled so far? Seasonal tournament as a whole? Anything like that?
I mean, I don't know. I just let's just go back and overall I think
These cards are pretty powerful.
I think they're
like
good.
them.
I'm excited to
I
play with
really
them.
like that. Like none of these jumped out at me, and I was like, "Wow, that card is like not okay. Like, why did they print that?" For example, like Grizzled Ranger, when it was a 4/1 that died into a 4/4, and there was also a
And it also
4/4
had
that
Scout?
cost. Yeah, with Scout, and it was also just a 4/4 that cost 3 mana, and I was like, "This seems like a little overstated." All of these seem like solid, but like quite good. They're just
And
like,
I've seen
getting
a
better at their
lot of
job.
hype. People are really excited to play with like Victor and stuff like that, which is
yeah.
really cool. Yeah, and it doesn't seem that busted. Nobody's like reading the card and is like, "Holy crap, this is so broken. I'm just gonna get a bunch of freelo." People are like, "Oh, this is so sweet. I'm gonna
play it
make
with
this
Bat
huge.
Alley,
I'm gonna make
Barky."
this huge Victor with like elusive and lifesteal and challenger and regenerate. And they're just gonna go off and have a good time. And like people are excited for that. Then that's super sweet.
absolutely. And who knows? Maybe we'll find out that the elusive cat is just massively oppressive, and you make it like a 12-3 on like turn 5 and just kill them.
Yeah, and maybe that
Happens. Maybe it doesn't.
That's
That's the fun thing. Honestly, what do you guys think is the best card out of all the things we looked at? What do you think is the best card to come out of here at face value?
I talked myself into that one that creates the card in your hand.
See, that's
Yeah,
fun.
I just like talked myself into it.
I still think it's the Death Ray.
Oh, okay.
Aftershock, or the Victor champion spell.
I mean, it's weird because I think it's okay. So I think it's Victor basically.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's Victor. But I do think that the best part of Victor is as champ spell.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
that's
like
my
that take.
that's my take.
yeah, I like that. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I feel like the best card to come out of this is the 2-drop burst
The last
spell.
one.
The last one. It's just
No, we can't remember the name of.
yeah,
because we've all heard it once or twice.
I'm looking back at it again.
It's like something to do with electricity. Or,
iterative improvement.
Yeah,
nothing
yeah,
to do with
hopefully,
electricity.
hopefully everyone's still with us because they
Yeah.
probably don't know the names of the cards either. So
I mean, then maybe it's good that we're describing that way.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
I wanted to real quick see, does anyone have any so we're coming out with some Noxus cards with Riven and some.
Do we know that she's Noxus?
We are basically sure, I think.
Okay, that makes sense. I just know that
and
she
these are
has
things that have been leaked
I think that
or like soft
they
confirmed.
got like soft
or-
leaked and confirmed what the new champions would be.
Okay.
Maybe they got that
So we're
data mined and
pretty
we shouldn't
sure
be talking about it.
We're
but
pretty sure that these are things that we're gonna have,
And-
but take it with a slight grain of salt because it hasn't been officially
yeah.
confirmed.
So
yet,
it's going to be Riven and Zoe. Does anyone have any cool speculation about what that will be?
Ooh, I didn't. This is the first I'm hearing about either of those, so I absolutely have no idea.
I think Zoe's probably pretty clearly gonna put stuff to sleep, right?
Yeah, some kind of
It's kind of her
or,
whole
like-
thing.
be weaponized tilt against.
I'm sure
come
I
across
cannot
her.
wait for her voice lines in game. I
Oh
mean,
my
they're
God.
just going to be ear splitting.
I believe those did get leaked, so you can go look those up if you would like.
I'll leave the surprise for a rainy
Yeah, it's
day.
much better. I have recently started listening to voice lines because I turn my sound on because I usually play on my phone, and boy, are they great. They have me
Yeah,
cackling.
they really add a lot. Yeah.
I will say that upon hearing that Riven's going to be the champion, I think what I would have to guess is that she's going to feel somewhat similar to how Lee Sin's spells
I kind of agree.
spells interact with the champion and the game, like just very small but impactful effects that can do different things that
Yeah.
like
Very much
different
agree.
things. Yeah. That's I think that's the closest parallel I would make.
I'm excited.
In speculation. Anyway. I
Yeah,
have
so
no
another
idea.
thing we know is that the Sneaky Zeebles, the 3/3 elusive,
Yeah.
is part of Zoe's batch that just kind of got released early, and it's
Oh,
one
God.
of the cards that's in that. So it's like an elusive thing that stuns thing. And Spacey Sketcher is also part of Zoe's little batch, which lets you discard cards and invoke.
I
So
really like both of
we'll
those
see.
cards.
Yeah.
Spacey Sketcher is one of my favorite, just cards in general. I think it's really underplayed, quite underrated. I like putting it in my constructed decks pretty frequently.
Yeah.
I think it's just a good card. It feels good to play. It makes your hands way less clunky. So
And I'm
much
almost certainly going to
more
regret
often.
saying this and having this take, but my God, I love Sneaky Zeebles, and I'm probably if that card
man.
becomes playable, man, am I going to hate life. Oh wow, mass AOE stun on a 3/3 elusive body is
is sick.
It is only powers 2 or less. It used to be power 3 or less apparently, and that was of course
I don't recall that, but wow.
No, like the developer was like, when we first printed this card, we were like, that would be cool if it was good, and then it was like, oh, that's insane.
Yeah, no, that catches so much.
Yeah.
Alrighty, I've got a fun game I want to play that I just thought of. All right. We're going to play over under. I'm going to give you a mana cost for each champion that has yet to be spoiled, and you tell me whether it's over under or right on the money.
Okay.
All right. Or over or under, so I'll give you fractions. All right. I'm going to set Zoe at 3.5. Over or under 3.5?
Over. In my head, that champion's 4 or 5 mana. I don't know why.
It's funny. In my head, that champion's like 2 mana. I have no idea
think so.
why. Like
That was my
under.
instincts too.
Under.
My instincts too was that I think Zoe might be 2, maybe 3.
maybe it's because her ult
Or
in
she'll be,
League
like, a lot-
is like on a 5-second
Yeah,
cooldown.
that was my thought
you know?
too. Yeah. Honestly. All right. And then we've got Riven. I'm gonna set Riven straight in the middle at 5.5. Riven is over or under 5.5.
I was gonna say 4.
Yeah, I'm going to say
Riven will
under
be
2.
under 2?
New
So you think
champions
they
are
won't-
always like mid-rangey 3/5s in my head, and I don't really know why.
So you think they will not release a champion that costs more than 5 mana then in this expansion?
I think that is likely.
I think that's likely as well.
Okay.
Maybe I'm crazy. Yeah, maybe I'm crazy.
I don't know. I mean, I could see Riven being like some 8 mana bomb.
Oh, okay.
I could.
I
don't know if it's
That's
likely, but I
that's
could
the
see
only
it.
one that I could see
There's-
being that big.
Yeah, that's why I made her that
Sejuani and like
bigger.
Asol is obviously the most, and then there's like Sejuani Darius, and I don't think there are 7 mana champions. Oh, Anivia was for a while, but it's now 6.
Is now 6. There is
Hecarim's 6.
Hecarim's 6.
Tryndamere's 8. Yeah.
Tryndamere is 8.
There's some, who knows? I don't know.
About it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Noxus, she's going to be from Noxus,
Swain's
right?
5?
Yeah.
I don't know.
She's gonna
Noxus
run
doesn't
on
have any like really cheap champions, right?
Yeah, Katarina's
Katarina is the cheapest,
Katarina
I
is the
think.
cheapest, which is kind of surprising for an aggressive deck.
Katarina
maybe
Draven,
Riven, or for
yeah.
an aggressive region. Maybe she'll be like, maybe Riven will be like 1 mana.
Katarina and Draven are the two.
Yeah, it'll be like
both
1
3
mana,
drops.
2/1. Yeah, who knows?
1 or 2 mana. Who knows? All right, that's fun. I think next time we'll get to cash in on those bets.
Yeah, it'll be nice. I do think we are getting cards for regions that aren't those 3, that aren't Noxus. For example, Ionia doesn't have a landmark. I'm sure if we thought for a second, we could think of other things that don't have a landmark, like Bilgewater. So both Ionia and Bilgewater are getting
Bilgewater
new
has
cards.
the Slaughter Ducks.
Oh, you're right. Yeah. I don't know why, but I was like, there's no pirates.
There's no pirate.
ships.
No, where's the pirate ship landmark?
Yeah, so Ionia does not have one. Freljord does, SI does, Demacia does not, right?
Demacia does not, I
so
think.
Demacia needs a landmark. Noxus already has a landmark. So it's interesting because all 3 of the ones that need champions already have landmarks. And so now it's going to be 3 champions for regions that have landmarks. And I think they did this on purpose.
3
They
landmarks.
were like, 4 landmarks, 4 champions, or 3 champions, and then like champions landmarks for the other way, so that no region got stiffed both a champion and a
The more
landmark.
I notice neat little things like that, the more I'm convinced it's on purpose. These
Yeah, it has
developers,
to.
Yeah,
these
absolutely.
developers
Has
are
to be,
so
yeah.
good at their job.
For sure.
Honestly, like
Alrighty, well, I think needless to say, we're very excited to see the new cards. Super excited to look forward to the future, get back on that ranked climb. It's nice to have a few days of de-stressing.
Yeah, I have finals week
afterwards.
for my final quarter of college,
Yeah,
and
maybe
boy did I
focus on that one
actually
for a little
spend
bit.
no time studying and a lot of time playing Legends of Runeterra last week, so I do
Same,
need to
yeah.
get on it.
Alrighty.
yeah, working 10 hours a day really put a dent in my ability to
Yeah, what a
grind
pain
ladder.
that is.
Yeah.
All right. So thank you all for watching episode 3 of Champ Select. We'll be back next week with episode 4. Let us know what you think by joining our Discord in the description below. You can follow us on Twitter as well, also be in the description below. We will see you all next week with another edition of Champ Select.